For a long time, I never talked about this. Not because I'd forgotten it, but because when you tell someone a terrifying thing happened to you on Christmas night, they tend to smile politely. They'll say you were probably just imagining things, that you were tired, that the silence of the holiday got to you. But this wasn't my imagination. I was wide awake, I was completely sober, and I was absolutely certain that I was alone in my house. That year, I spent Christmas by myself. My family was in another city, and most of my friends had traveled to be with their own families. I didn't mind it. In fact, I welcomed the idea of a quiet holiday. It had been a really long, exhausting year, and the thought of a silent night just for me felt like a genuine comfort. My house was dimly lit, with only a few lamps casting long shadows across the rooms. I hadn't bothered to put up a Christmas tree or any decorations. The television was off. Outside, I could hear the occasional pop of distant fireworks, but the street itself was deserted and perfectly still. It was one of those nights where the entire world feels like it's paused, like everything and everyone is holding its breath in unison. I remember glancing at the clock on the wall. It read 11:47 p.m. That detail is important. The house sounded normal, at least at first, the familiar click and groan of the pipes in the walls, the low, steady hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the faint, almost imperceptible creak of the old wooden floor settling. I'd lived in that house for years. I knew all its sounds. I trusted them. They were like the house's own unique heartbeat. I went into the kitchen and made myself a hot chocolate, taking the warm mug back to the living room. I sat down on the couch and started scrolling aimlessly through my phone. Christmas messages from friends, old photos from years past. Time was passing slowly, but it was peaceful. And then I heard something. At first, I couldn't quite identify it. It sounded like breathing. It was so faint, so quiet, that my first thought was that it was my own. So I stopped and I held my breath. The house went completely, utterly silent. And then I heard it again. A soft, rhythmic inhale and exhale. It was coming from the hallway. It wasn't a word. It wasn't a whisper. It was just the unmistakable, chilling sensation that someone else was there, breathing in the dark. I tried to reason with myself. Houses make noises, especially old ones on quiet nights. The silence of Christmas can play tricks on your mind, exaggerating every little sound. Still, I put my phone down on the cushion beside me. That's when the lamp in the corner of the room flickered. Just once. It happened so fast that I almost missed it, but my heart jumped into my throat anyway. A jolt of adrenaline shot through me. I stood up slowly and peered down the long, dark hallway. Everything looked normal. All the doors were closed. There was no movement. I turned back toward the living room and heard a floorboard creak. Not the usual settling sound, but a sharp, distinct crack. Like a single, deliberate step had been taken just out of my line of sight. I knew I was alone. I had locked the doors myself hours ago. I stood there, frozen, just listening. Then, a cold draft brushed against my face. It seemed to come from the bathroom at the end of the hall. The door was slightly ajar. Curiosity, or maybe just foolishness, got the better of me. I walked toward it, my steps hesitant. When I looked into the bathroom mirror, I noticed it was slightly fogged, as if someone had just taken a hot shower, even though no hot water had been running for hours. I saw my own reflection staring back at me. I looked pale, a little scared, but normal. But the deep, gut-wrenching unease didn't go away. And then, in the mirror, I saw it. Movement. A flicker of motion in the reflection, just behind my shoulder. It was like a shadow passing through the doorway. I spun around, my heart pounding against my ribs. The hallway was empty, still, silent. That's when I heard a voice, impossibly close to my ear. It whispered one word. Hello. I can't properly describe that voice. It wasn't clearly male or female. It was raspy, dry. But it sounded familiar. Like it was a voice that knew me, that had been waiting for me. At that exact moment, the lights in the house began to flicker. But not randomly. It was deliberate. On, off, on, off. The living room seemed to grow darker with each pulse, the shadows closing in, making the space feel smaller and more claustrophobic. I backed away, stumbling over my own feet, trying to get away from the hallway. Then, from the spare bedroom, I heard the old radio on the nightstand turn on. It crackled to life, filling the suffocating silence with loud, piercing static. I hadn't touched that radio in weeks. It was unplugged. That was the moment the denial shattered. The moment I finally accepted that I wasn't alone in the house. Not truly. "Is someone there?" I asked, my voice shaking so badly I could barely form the words. The answer came immediately, from all around me at once. "We're here." That one word, "we," made my stomach drop. It implied more than one. How many more? I forced myself to look at the bathroom mirror again, and this time I saw it clearly. A figure standing in the doorway behind me. It wasn't human, but it wasn't completely unfamiliar either. It looked unfinished, like something that hadn't learned how to exist properly yet. Its form was blurry, indistinct, but its eyes were sharp and focused directly on me. They weren't filled with anger or malice, but with a kind of intense, unnerving attention, like it had been watching me for a very, very long time. "We tried our best," the strange, raspy voice said, seeming to come from the figure in the mirror, "so you wouldn't be alone on Christmas." And then the lights went out completely, plunging the entire house into absolute, suffocating darkness. In the blackness, I could hear breathing. Mine, ragged and panicked, and others. Several others from different corners of the room. Something moved toward me. Not fast, not aggressively, but with a slow, certain purpose. Then, suddenly, everything returned to normal. The lights flickered back on, the static from the radio stopped, the cold draft vanished. I was sitting on the couch again. The mug of now cold hot chocolate was still in my hands. The clock on the wall still read 11:47 p.m. It was as if no time had passed at all, as if it had all been a nightmare. But the house felt wrong. It wasn't just quiet anymore. It was empty. The friendly sounds were gone. No pipes clicking. No refrigerator humming. No floors creaking. The house wasn't breathing anymore. Only I was. I stayed awake like that, sitting rigid on the couch until the sun came up. I moved out the very next day, and to this day, I never, ever spend Christmas night alone. Because some houses, especially on Christmas, don't like being empty. And if you find yourself all alone, something might just make sure you aren't. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more.